Hello and welcome. You're tuned in to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. That guy, Tim Dennis. Hello, Tim.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. We're doing something a little different this week, buddy. Mm-hmm. I'm staying on the show with you, but I'm going to turn the reins over to you in a few moments to become the interviewer. And I will be taking a seat on the other side of the desk as one of the interviewees, because we've been doing the show for 14 years. Mm-hmm. And we've talked often about trying some of these experiments, whether it's going out in the field to Bigfoot hunt, which we still have not done, or perhaps having a past life regression, which we still haven't done, right. or any one of these other amazing experiences. And I've always felt like, we're always going to do it, and we never get a chance to do it. Well, this last weekend, Tim, I had a chance to finally do something that I've wanted to do, I've wanted to try, and I was fully committed to giving this thing a shot. So that's what we're going to discuss today, because I want our listeners to hear my story and what happened to me, because I know we've spoken to people over the years mm-hmm. that have dabbled in this and have tried it, some that are extremely committed, some that are just hobbyists, if you would. But this was something I wanted to see for myself. And I'll tell you what, this is pretty exciting, right? So we mentioned a few weeks ago, or last week's show, about how I found my biological father through Ancestry.com, and that he has this very fascinating connection to the supernatural. And in our conversations, he said, something I'd really recommend to you, son, is that you take a journey. You take a guided journey. And I'm like, okay, where are we going with this? And he was talking about like ayahuasca. And I said, yeah, all right, yeah. And I'm going to go meet my dad, Tim. As a matter of fact, today and yesterday, I've been out in Florida. I mean, we're recording this a couple days in advance, but okay. I'm in Florida meeting my biological family. So this is super exciting time for me. Mm-hmm. But I thought, you know what? It's interesting that he brings this up, and then this opportunity arises. And a very, very dear friend of mine heard my interest and said, I can make this happen for you. I know somebody who is a very gifted guide and facilitator with this, somebody I trust and know and love, and said, why don't you do this while we're here? And I said, okay. So it was, okay, here's the deal. Okay. We listen to all of these people talk about it over the year, right? It's very hippy dippy. It's very, it's all one in nature and the universe and blah, blah, blah. And you hear this stuff and it sounds beautiful. It sounds wonderful, but it's this strange kind of hippie culture-ish feel to those of us that have never lived in that environment, right?
True.
And I've been on drugs like I was when I was in the hospital and had that very strange experience with you when I was seeing spirits in the room. And, well, Dave, you were under pretty good drugs there. You were on a morphine drip. So, but I remember every aspect of that experience. Does that make it any less real? The brain, they say, cannot discern between a real and a vividly imaginative experience. But the memory of it was so clear, and the fact that they were there and you were there, and it was really a powerful moment. I've watched friends take hallucinogenics through the years, and I've been there holding their hands through horrible trips, if you will. Mm-hmm. So part of my fear was, I don't want to have a bad trip. I don't want to go in and I'm terrified of snakes, and I'm terrified of death. Right?
Now, can I ask you a couple of questions before you go any further?
Sure.
And it has to do with what you just brought up. Now, we've known each other for a long time, almost 32 years. Right. And in that, you've never been much of one to imbibe in anything. In fact, even when we were in college, there were, I would say, there were more times where we went to parties where you stayed sober rather than imbibe. And even as we've gotten older, you've tended to lay off rather than partake. Mm-hmm. And to me, it seems like you have your own reasons for that, but would you explain to people why it is in your mind that you don't partake?
Sure. Well, here's the deal. I smoked a lot of weed when I was a teenager, right? Mm-hmm. I enjoyed marijuana. It was great. I always had a fun time. I was with people I loved and trusted, and we used to just have a good time with it. So I did smoke marijuana growing up, and by a lot, I mean, maybe over the span of a couple of years, I smoked weed, and then it kind of tapered off, and I've had a hit here or there through time, but nothing major. I come from a family of alcoholics, so I've tried to avoid drinking on any kind of scale. I will have some drinks at a party if we're at one of these events and such, but it's just not part of my daily thing. I know the weaknesses in my family. Mm-hmm. I know the predisposition, so I've tried to avoid all of that. Plus, I realize there are three different Daves. There is this Dave. Then when drinking, there is very loving and affectionate Dave who will love on you, hug you, kiss you, and just love the hell out of you. But in the turn of a hat, I can become really mean, vindictive, hateful, violent Dave. And I don't like who that guy is. I don't like that trigger mechanism. So I just figure, why put myself in a position where that guy can come out? He doesn't belong here. Okay. So that's always been a big part of it. And it's not, I've never beaten anybody or anything, but I don't like the rage that I feel. Okay. Which this is going to play into our conversation here in a little bit, because holy shit did I have an experience. But I have this kind of just avoidance of all of these things, because I have watched people do drugs and watch them go down strange paths. Mm-hmm. But these are, of course, designer drugs. These are chemically created drugs, acid and some of these other things. And you don't know who's making it and what they're cutting it with or what they're building it with. It just never appealed to me. Right. So that was kind of my thought. But then hearing the guests that we've talked to about DMT and ayahuasca ceremonies and it does sound beautiful. And I know a few people that I care about that took a journey. And they were like, Dave, it's life-changing. I saw this, I saw that. And it's, I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's interesting. And part of you's going, how high were you, right? Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of skepticism towards the entire experience. But I went in completely open-minded, open-hearted to do this, because I truly wanted to embrace a new experience. And here was something interesting, right? I've been doing intermittent fasting literally for the last month. So I've been limiting my intake of garbage. I've cut soda completely out of my system, which I was drinking 4 to 5 cans a day. I was eating fast food 2 or 3 times a day. Yeah, you heard me, 2 or 3 times a day. I was living a relatively unhealthy lifestyle. And as I'm approaching 53 this year, and I want to be here for my children, and I want to be here for my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, I just figured I better step it up, because you only get one shot at this right now, right? In this lifetime, I get one shot, and I want to make the best of it. So I've really limited it. I'm eating in about a 4-hour window. Now, I don't need 100 emails telling me how stupid that is, because this is my journey, not yours, and it's working well for me. Mm-hmm. I feel better than I have. My body doesn't ache as much. I don't have the same health issues. And the fasting has helped clear my mind considerably. I don't feel that fog that I often felt. So I appreciate, again, all the love and concern for my health. And I will admit, about a week or so ago, I kind of broke down out of frustration about my journey in this weight loss deal, that I'd been busting my ass for almost a month, but I'd only seen 1 pound. Now, something that my castmates pointed out to me while filming is, hey, you may only have 1 pound that's showing, but every 5 steps you're pulling your pants up, and we keep watching you tighten your belt. So I guess I'm not noticing it as much, the weight scale, but inches are moving. Mm-hmm. So I'll take that. That's a win in my case, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I guess this fasting was really fortuitous as well, because I guess that was, unbeknownst to me, going to help me with my journey that I was unsure of. But I want to point out the 2 things that I mentioned, Tim. I have had, since I was a child, very small, an overwhelming fear of death. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Right.
Fear. There's no other way to explain it. Fear of death. And snakes. No understanding of why I have a fear of that for either. right? I've never been bitten by a snake. I've never been threatened by a snake, but the two things are quite astounding. So the fear level to them was unbelievable. So I was terrified I was going to go in and have that experience, but I sat down with my guide and I gave her my fears. I told her, and she assured me that's not going to happen here. And then she said the hippie stuff, right? Then it's oh, Dave, don't worry. The plants know what you need, and they're going to keep you safe and protect you. They're not going to frighten you. They're not going to. And you're like, the plants are going to help me. They know what I need. And it's running in your mind. You're trying to be clear-minded. You're trying to be respectful. But all I'm hearing is, oh, my God, how the hell are plants going to know my fear of snake? How are they going to differentiate in my brain? Because if I've got this fear in me, am I inviting this to kick my ass?
Right.
So but I was in it, man. I was committed. Let's do this thing. Let's have this experience. So now I'm going to take a second and introduce our guest. As I said, a very dear friend of mine, somebody that I love and trust, suggested that this be my guide and facilitator. And this was going to take place in a very safe environment. And it was, instead of a room with 20 to 30 strangers, this was in a very closed environment with my facilitator, my handler, and then a couple other people that were there to help me on this little journey. And so I felt very safe going into this. But joining us on the show now is GK. Those are that's the name we're going to give her for this case. She was my facilitator and guide. GK, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here today and agreeing to do this with me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Can you set the tone a little bit for us before we get into my journey, just so people understand your background in this? And I know you told me you were a very type A personality, very controlled, very, you were kind of an anal personality yourself. How do you go from that to becoming a facilitator in this kind of field? And how long have you been doing this?
No, that's a great question. I have been doing this for close to 12 years. And I have been leading groups all around the country and led retreats and for 5 consecutive years. But before that, you're absolutely right. I was very driven, type A, 3 degrees by the age of 24, a perfectionist. And I had a dear friend that I trusted implicitly and ran a big company and had been trying to get me to quote-unquote journey or to do this work for at least a year. And I was very reticent. I thought it was drugs. I thought it was a cult. I had never done any kind of hallucinogenic or any strong drug in my life. I tried smoking and alcohol pretty much. Cannabis maybe once, but definitely not my plant. So I just hesitated, and he would gently bring it up. And it was one particular evening we were out to dinner, and he, again, brought it up because there was a ceremony that weekend. And I can't really describe it, but there was something about his comportment. There was something about his energy that had changed. He usually had a very strong ego, almost arrogant, lovingly so, but, being a president of a company, he definitely had that kind of swagger. And something had changed. It became, our conversation became much more intimate, much more vulnerable. I saw a side of him that I had never seen. He was much more gentle, intimate. Those are words I would describe it. So he invited me again, and before I could say no, I'm saying yes. And he gifted me with my first ceremony, so there was no excuse. So I remember going. It was a place in Malibu, and I was very nervous and didn't know what to expect, and I was judging the crap out of it. And when the quote-unquote shaman arrived, he looked more like the gardener. He was dressed in like jeans and some man shoes and like some turquoise Nike hoodie. And I just, was looking at everyone in the room, judging them implicitly. There were beds set up because, you spend the night. And I'm thinking, I'm not swinging. I hope that's what this isn't about. And, I was completely out of my comfort zone. So as soon as he started speaking, though, absolutely one of the most brilliant men I have ever met, brilliant minds. And he has been my mentor now for close to 12 years. And so that really put me at ease. just talking about plant medicine, but also talking about his 45-year history in leading groups and the transformation a lot of people in the room had, my friend especially. And I do remember even when we started to, because my first journey wasn't like yours. My first journey wasn't ayahuasca. I had the caveat of working, and I still do, where I carry a medicine bag of many, many plants. As I shared with you when I met you, as of today, there are about 375 species of plants. Of those, 60,000 could be used medicinally in this way. If I had mad skills, I could be a little alchemist and go into your kitchen and whip you up a journey with your spices. Most people don't know that because what's trending right now are the big teacher plants like ayahuasca or San Pedro Huachuma or peyote or psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, or MDMA, which is the synthetic form of sassafras. Those are more mainstream, and you hear, a little bit of knowledge is dangerous because a lot of people don't understand that there are so many different plants that you can use that can be more of an ally plant to get to you to a place of where you're feeling, not thinking. Because so many of us think we're feeling our ways around our lives, but we're actually thinking. As soon as we have a thought and put an emotion to it,
yes,
it becomes a feeling. Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, you told me that during our beginning. And
yeah,
again,
I did.
In it again, and I want to set the stage here, Tim. Unfortunately, doing this this phone interview, you can't see the light around this woman.
Okay.
She is extremely beautiful in this, and I don't just mean aesthetically. She's a very beautiful woman as well, but that wasn't the point. There was just this mothering, nurturing warmth that literally exudes off somebody, and it's almost intoxicating. It's like you would feel immediately safe in her presence, which, again, I know sounds hippy-dippy to some of our listeners, but bear with me on this, folks, because this was a scary concept for me to go into. But she told me these different aspects, and I even gave her some, hey, I do have a health concern. Should this be a concern? She didn't just jump to an answer. She actually contacted her mentor to get the information to make sure that what I was explaining to her was not going to be an issue. And if it was, what would be a better alternative? So I really respected that. It wasn't just, pushing. This is what you need to do. Mm-hmm. It was this, here's the education. Here's what we're going to do. And then asking, is this something that you still feel that you're drawn to and would like to be a part of? There was never any pressure to do this. There was never any, feeling of, God, I'm going to let everybody down. I'm going to, she came all the way out here to do this. It was never any feeling of that at all. But again, you hear these words, which, we're in our head so much. We think we're living when we're really thinking, and we're overanalyzing everything. And
Exactly.
that became a massive realization during my journey as well. And it really, it's so unbelievably profound, but I wanted to point that part out, that statement stood out to me specifically. And what's funny is the plant medicine and the universe didn't let me forget a thing. They reminded me of every concern and worry I had going into this. They addressed each one of those points, including every eye roll I had to every comment she made, and it would show me. And it was like, you would think that, okay, it's built into me and hardwired into me, this skepticism. So my brain is going to find a way to say, oh, my God, you're just high. She was lying. This is crazy. Instead, it unfolded, showing me that everything she said was completely true.
Oh, that's great.
That was unbelievable to me. So I'm sorry, GK, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
No, I love that.
That as well.
Even expound on that, meaning you are a seeker, you are a visionary, and I think you realize that. And I also think it's scientifically proven, or it's been said, that about 13% of humanity is called to this work. It's not for everyone, right? And so that's why I would never push this work on anyone. It truly is a soul's calling. Like for me, it took a year. For you were feeling into it, and there was a resonance, and there was a calling, and then the stars aligned, divine timing, and there we were, right? So I believe, it is my feeling, that 13% of humanity is called to this work, because when we're healing ourselves, we're healing 7 generations forward and 7 generations back. We're entering past, present, and future, as I'd like to call it, circuitous time, simultaneously. So I would love to hear more too from you, Dave, about that, what I just shared. Like, if you were feeling your past, present, and future simultaneously, like how really there was no concept of time. Like you could have gone. People liken it to like 10 years of therapy in one evening.
Oh,
because
yeah.
you are really entering the experience, that space in between, if you will, that God speak, the unconscious space, the space that takes up like 88% of our brain, but we don't use in this realm. We can't, because we're here to play the game of life in linear time with the illusion of linear time and our linear minds. And they're very black and white, where what we entered is very nebulous and anything is possible. It's infinite possibilities, and it's truly going back to, not to sound too woo-woo, but back to the womb, to the cosmic womb, going back to that sense of unconditional love where we all came from. And from that place, you're able to have the experience, you know?
Right, and it was. Now, here was some of the fascinating aspects of this to me, Tim. As I'm trying to, prepare myself, I'm relaxed. I'm in loose clothing. I'm wearing my Area 51 sweatshirt, ready to go journey to the universe.
Okay.
I'm just settling in, ready for whatever this brings to me, and I wanted GK to join me today on the show because I thought it was important to give a different perspective. I will tell you, I wish, and I certainly wouldn't want to impede on anybody else's moment, because there were other people there journeying, but it's one of those, I wish I could watch on video back or have recorded, because I want to see what it looked like. That's why I wanted GK to join, so that not only could she give us the background of what was going on, but she's going to be the eyes of the viewer for us, Tim.
Okay.
I can tell you what I experienced, but again, I don't know how much of it was going on inside and how much was going on outside. She
that's
was
great.
there.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to do this. Now, before this, Tim, we've talked about intention setting a lot on the show.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about, there's really no such thing as a coincidence, and that things do seem to line up the way they need to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And GK starts off and she said, I want you to think of a word that you want to take into this journey with you. Right? And there's, this will be kind of part of the key, which is, okay, this is my intention setting. Now, I'm in this room of strangers, and, I'm a radio show host, TV guy, so do I want to sound deep, love. Love. And that was my first, I'll say love. Nobody else has said love. They're all talking about this, that, and the other. And then, are you hearing that?
Yeah, I just heard that.
What is that?
I don't know. From time to time, there's this weird anomaly that keeps coming through.
Yeah, and there's this weird pregnant pause where you just kind of disappeared and came back.
Yeah, we heard this like weird music kind of come through.
Yeah.
That's
very
crazy.
unusual. And I've heard it a couple of times, weird little things pop
Me
in.
too. I've been hearing it too, but I'm trying to be quiet and, follow your lead, so to speak.
Well, then she comes to me, Tim, and the word I'm expecting to say is love, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead, the word forgiveness comes out, right?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
key.
And I was like, oh, all right, forgiveness. All right, that's good. I like that too. That'll work. And apparently my soul knew what I needed more than my brain did, right? Because as GK said, we're always in that thought process, and the body and soul spoke up first.
Sure.
So I went with, okay, and she goes, great. And she does this prayer for me, introducing forgiveness to this journey. And then GK, I'll let you explain what was given to me, what specifically, because there are many different teacher plants, but I know that you said you were going to give me, I think you referred to it as a grandmother plant, correct?
Yes, I like to refer to her as the grandmother to show her profound respect. She is known as ayahuasca. And as I was sharing with you, ayahuasca can be brewed 1,500 different ways using up to 150 different types of plants, which many people don't know. But the two main ingredients is Banisteriopsis and Trachuna leaves, the vine and leaf, which you would find in the jungle and in the Amazon. So if you feel into it, we call her the grandmother because it's a very masculine energy, believe it or not, but it's coming through the grandmother. She likes to work in the dark. Think about the desert. Think about the topography of, the topography of the jungle. She loves the jungle. She loves the night. She loves that it's dank and kind of murky. The jaguar is the gatekeeper. That is the bridge. That is the totem. And she will take you to school whether you think you're ready or not. Now, opposite and complementary, and if you're ever open to working with this plant medicine, Dave, there is grandfather Wachuma, which is San Pedro, which is the cactus, which is the desert. And he is a very feminine energy. And he loves the heat. He loves to be outside. It's very elemental. So what you were working with is grandmother ayahuasca, and the entry point is mind and spirit. Opposite and complementary is grandfather Wachuma, San Pedro. The cactus, the entry point, is body and heart. So those are two beautiful teacher plants that actually are very opposite and complementary. And they work very well together. Now, it's interesting, if you were to go to the jungle, there's many different tribes, many different indigenous cultures, and many different ways of performing ceremony. Some believe that you really need to get sick. They even call it the healing room, like that you would need to throw up or to, purge and so the healing could begin. There's many modalities and many different schools of thought on this. The shaman that I work with, and he travels the world, and he definitely has studied the Western mind, so it's geared to Western culture. He doesn't believe that per se, that it's necessary to purge for enlightenment. And so the sacrament I carry has ayahuasca in it, but also we use psilocybin to act as an activator to activate the ayahuasca, and also I carry it in two forms. I carry it in chocolate, and I carry it in powder. Now, carrying it in chocolate, the theobromine activates the aya, and then if I carry it in powder, I use pineapple juice, and I found out you were allergic to pineapple juice because I was feeling that would be a nice way for you because it's a cleaner entry. And when I say cleaner, I don't mean better. Think about chocolate has a little more heat. And pineapple juice, works in your stomach and the digestive system a little differently. That's all it is. It's just two different approaches to be able to receive the sacrament. And we like to call it sacrament because it truly is. The reason why it's protected now under the Freedom of Religious Act is because the Santo Daime took the case all the way to the Supreme Court and equated ayahuasca with the Holy Eucharist. So it truly is, in these cultures, sacrament, because you are to God. It is a way to God, if you will, or fill in the blank, source, higher self, whatever has meaning for you.
Well, that's fascinating that you say that because, again, Tim, if you can, remember later on near the end of my journey to ask me about the sacrament and the covenant, if you can recall that.
Sure.
Okay?
Oh.
Because we've got a lot to get through.
Want me to circle back to my first journey, or are we good with that?
No, please, go ahead.
Because I realized I started and I didn't finish.
Please.
Because it's kind of funny. I ended with saying how brilliant his mind is, and then we're all of us are ready to take sacrament. And I was given an empathogen. And so an empathogen is another word for a heart opener. And I have the good fortune, because of the shaman I work with, is extremely bright and had 3 degrees by the age of 21 and did research at Caltech. And his mom was 100% Chinese, and his father was the oldest lineage of Peruvian shamanism. So we carry designer plants from all over the world that are used as heart openers. And so when he gave it, and we carry it just like it looks like a vitamin in pill form, so we can travel easily and accessibly. When he gave it to me, I literally thought to myself, okay, this is Jonestown. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I mean, I judged the crap out of it. I was so frightened, but still something, my higher self said, just go with it. And I'll never forget it. It takes about 45 minutes for the sacrament to kick in. And then this beautiful facilitator sits in front of me, and she's like, why don't you pull a card, pull any card? And I'm thinking, I know what you're trying to do here. And I was thinking, biatch, you're trying to get me not to think about what's going on and pull, quote unquote, a medicine card. And then the shaman was looking at me, and there was someone behind, a very gifted journey woman, who was channeling spirit, and her eyes are rolling. Can I curse on the show?
Sure, why not? We're all about being open today.
His eyes are rolling in the back of her head. And I said, holy, fork, what's that? What's going on? He's like, oh, don't worry about it. She's just channeling spirit. And then this other master journeyman came up to me, like this oversized Scooby-Doo, and he was like, boo, boo. And I'm like, oh, my God. I just entered a freak show. This is a circus. I cannot believe it. But as soon as I said in my mind, well, what is this experience, 6 to 8 hours? All of a sudden, dry tears. I'm going to start crying right now. It's still, like 12 years ago, it still gets me. Just like, I always thought, oh, God, I knew what love was. And I was. I have a very full dance card, very full life, very driven, a lot of organizations, many, many friends, great, great family, huge family. And I always thought I knew what love was. And as soon as it started to, I started to feel it, it felt like I felt for the first time what it truly means to feel love and be loved. And I hunkered down like a little caterpillar, and I felt like I was a little girl. And I took all my blankies, and I called my whoobies, my pillows, and I didn't move. I didn't move for like 8 hours. At one point, I lifted my head up, and my shaman was like, you need more. And I laughed. I'm like, okay, and I was able to go a little deeper and unfolding. And what was incredible is that night, my gift came through as a guide and facilitator, and I started guiding these men at the end of the night just organically. And there was one particular man that I'll never forget, that he was Hasidic Jewish faith, very orthodox, and he had on a big hat and the suit with a tie, and he was reading his Bible, and he was really going through a crisis of faith because, he didn't know if he should be doing sacred plant medicine, that if it would be against his religion. And he looked up at me, and he just started weeping. He goes, oh my gosh, you're the mother, you're the blessed mother. What an angel. And then I have come to find out that I do carry the Mary line, if you will, the energy of the blessed mother. So it's interesting that you would share that I had such a motherly presence, because I really believe my gift and my dharma is coming in just carrying the mother energy, because it is so safe, and I'm able to mother in a way that maybe perhaps you particularly didn't receive as a child, or I'm able to look at you like a child to get to a place where you may need to go. It's so mystic. It's such a mystery, but I know that's the kind of space I hold. It's like I almost carry the womb, if you will, not to get too woo-woo, but, that's what the space people tell me it feels like when they're having their experience.
And she truly is this very mothering, natured soul. So it's pretty remarkable. And that's why it was so much easier for me to kind of let go. And, after giving my intention of forgiveness, I was bullied as a kid, pretty brutally. I had a lot of anger, and then even bringing it back to thinking that I knew who my biological father was. And when I reached out to him 30 years ago, I was met with such hatred and vitriol, and I've carried this kind of poison in me since then. And I just, I hold in a lot of anger and frustration, and you know that, Tim.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like, all right, forgiveness. Let's see what this means and where it takes us. And I kept thinking, too, my fear of death, my fear of snakes, and hoping to see my mother in some way during this journey. Mm-hmm. So that kind of brings us up to the moment of truth.
Okay.
And you remember real quick, Dave, too, right? Like I didn't really know you at all.
Right.
I didn't know your past. And I said that you may struggle with anger. I said, but you had a heart of like the Grand Canyon. I can feel your love and compassion, probably one of the most sensitive, loving. And then I went on to ask if you were bullied as a child.
Yeah.
Like I could, it's just interesting when I start working with what you're allowing, you feel safe enough to show me, what it is you need to work with. And that's how we went in. You're right. So that was a good place to begin.
And then, Tim, she makes it appealing for guys like you and I, because I don't have to smoke this peace pipe. I don't have to drink this crazy elixir. She hands me a little tin foil wrapper in the shape of a heart. Mm-hmm. And I open it up, and there's a delightful chocolate heart waiting for me to ingest.
Aww.
And, my shoes are off. I'm in my comfy jeans, my Area 51 sweatshirt. I have a night mask to put over my eyes, which will come into play in a bit. Mm-hmm. And I eat the chocolate. And then GK says, I'm going to put on music now, and I'm going to leave this room and let you each just relax for the next hour. And I'm like, man, I'm tired. I'm going to fall asleep. Where is this going to go? You just dope me up and then put me down for a nap. I feel like I'm in kindergarten. I got my little cot on the floor, my blanket over me. And, but let's see. So I lay down. I put the mask over my eyes. The music begins. And we'll be right back. Stay tuned. You're listening to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio.
Hi, this is Kelsey Grammer. When military service members head into battle, none are expected to face the enemy alone, but many return home and become isolated as they struggle with the visible and invisible wounds of war. It can be difficult knowing how to overcome that challenge and rekindle bonds similar to those formed in the military. Wounded Warrior Project supports these injured veterans through their recoveries by connecting them with fellow warriors and their communities. No one should fight this battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.org.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Okay. All right, Tim, we've set the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Right? GK has given me this token, this chocolate. Now, you asked me to receive it, GK, into my left hand. Why is that important?
Because this left side of our body represents our divine feminine, and that's the receptor, the receiver. And the right side of our body represents the divine masculine, the creator. And it goes beyond sexual persuasion, gender, or biology. Each of us carry a divine masculine energy and a divine feminine energy. The masculine, if you came in with the wand, literally and figuratively, you're here to create your life. It's the exhale. If you came in with the womb, if you will, we're a receptor, we're here to receive our life. So it's the Mobius of giving and receiving and giving, hence the left hand.
And that plays a part in here later as well. And I'll tell you guys part of the story that really kind of was beautiful and shocking all at the same time. So this music starts. First of all, amazing music. I need all of it. All of it.
Oh, I'll hook you up for sure.
Oh, my God. Tim, you know my love and fascination for music,
mm-hmm.
right? Music has driven me through my life and I believe has been a savior. This music was magical. And I don't mean like Pink Floyd looking at blacklight posters high in your mom's basement magical.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, during part of this journey, because I'm in this journey for 4 hours, okay?
Mm-hmm.
During this, at points, I'm thinking, this music keeps pushing me into this journey. I need a break. Turn off the music for 5 minutes. I need a breath. Because it's like the music would take me. It was so amazing. And you could, it was just crazy. Well, but I digress.
What was this music like? I mean,
there was a mixture of music. And I meant to ask you about this because GK, of course, most of it has this very Indian feel to it. And I mean like sitar kind of, music. I don't know what the proper terminology is for.
No, that's correct. That's one. I mean, I literally have about 4 days worth of music on my playlist,
right?
Easily. And what I do is I always listen to see what the first CD will be, what everyone needs in the room, and then I'll let it continue until I feel I need to hit shuffle, and then I let Spirit be the guide, because Spirit knows best what you need. And we use all sorts of music, kirtan music, yoga music, meditation music, indigenous Native American music,
right.
Ikaros, and the Ikaros are ayahuasca music, where the ayahuasquero in the jungle would sing his lineage, his ancestral lineage, and call in the spirits to help come guide. So there's so many different types of music, and it went exactly like this amazing, I call it a symphony, where whatever your soul needed at that time, right, you received it, and it could be completely different. The music can be completely different. There's all sorts of different modalities, and I can definitely lead you to my website where you can get all the music that I ever use in ceremony. And then there were some beautiful mantras in Sanskrit and all different types of books,
Right, so this music, it was like an orchestra for my life, Tim. It was unbelievable. And through it, I'm hearing whispers, right? And let it go, come with us. And it was really just beautiful. But so for this hour, I laid there and I just felt more relaxed than I've ever felt in my life. But then I heard GK enter into the room, and then she starts kind of facilitating just to kind of get us into the next groove. And then the roller coaster starts. And I don't mean this in a bad way. It was truly an energetic shift and a total life changer for me. And I'll leave it to you now, Tim. You take this journey and this conversation with us wherever you feel like going, and I'll shoehorn in these stories as they unfold.
Oh, and real quick, too, Dave, I always say an hour just to give you something to attach your mind to, but I think I was back in the room like 30 minutes later. Like, I just go out and drop in with the elements, and I just listen. And then when I hear you guys are ready, I come on in. So I think it was like a half an hour I came in.
That sounds very Santa Claus-like. For one reason or another. I want to... Okay, so that makes me want to go in one or two directions here, but let me start with GK first. So how do you, GK, first of all, when you say you just kind of drop in and you know when they're ready, how do you know when they're ready? What physical signs do you see? What spiritual signs do you see when you know when someone is ready to begin their journey?
Well, this is the hard part to describe. And I always like to say that no one gets a free pass in a human suit. Mm-hmm. We're all a hot mess and we're magnificent. We all have baggage and we're brilliant. However, when I am being called to this work, I'm all that in a slice of bread. I don't know quite what happens. I become universal knowledge. I become like an oracle, and I become a conduit for Dave's soul. So he's speaking to me. I feel like I'm a nun. I'm a little devoted nun or a monk, and I'm just being of service, a steward to his soul. And I'm extremely devoted, and it's hard to describe the gift. The plants talk to me as well. People will ask me, how do you know what recipe to give someone, or why you gave someone that plant and someone a different plant? And, I think it's from years of experience. They always say the 10,000 hour, work method is, I've been doing this work for over 10 years, leading groups, and also a deep knowing. It's the best way I could describe it. It's a gut feeling. It's my intuition. It is a psychic ability, I guess. It is like one of my, I guess it's like a psychic gift that I just know,
Now,
I hope that helps.
That helps a little bit. Now, when Dave says he's hearing these voices that are telling him to let go, are you as well hearing these voices that he's hearing?
No, I'm not. I definitely can feel that he's dropping in very deep, and dropping in, for lack of a better word, let me try to explain it. So we have this realm, and especially with the teacher plants, and especially with ayahuasca, there is an ayahuasca world. It's like you're entering a different portal or vortex. You're still here. You're very safe. You're who you are. It's not like Dave wouldn't know he was Dave. Right. It's not scary, but it is like you're being invited into the world of grandmother ayahuasca. And she is one of the most ancient plants. I think Huachuma San Pedro might be older, but, people indigenously have been using ayahuasca for, thousands and thousands and thousands of years to be able to connect to source, to God, to their higher self, to be able to go back to the realm we came from. Because there really is, and Dave, I'm excited to hear how you feel about death now after having this experience, because there really is no such thing as death. It's like we literally close our eyes and then we open them and we're just in a different realm. It's forever, it's ever expanding. But, that's my belief, and, I'm sure people have their own belief, and I'm not looking, to argue with anyone about this. It's just my feeling, just based on my own experience and working with these plants.
Well, and we'll get to that point eventually here. But Dave, okay, so you're laying there, you're in the night mask, you're starting to hear voices on top of the music that's playing, that's telling you to let go. Now, at this point, knowing you like I know you, I know that letting go is a hard thing for you to do.
Yeah.
At this point, when you start to hear those voices, do you automatically clinch, or are you starting to listen to them?
No, I would, what I noticed prior to GK coming back would be that I would be laying there and all of a sudden I would take these deep breaths, these like yawning breaths, almost like it's the last breath. But it felt beautiful and cleansing. I don't know how else to explain it.
Okay.
And then I would like shudder. It was just remarkable. It felt like this, I was breathing in life around me as this was happening, but I kept feeling this nerve, and I realized that part of what I'm doing is I'm loading myself up, right, for this journey and where it's going to take me. And breath would become an important aspect of this journey for me as well. But I kept hitting these big, powerful breaths. And I realized, my body just needs this. My body is in a bad way. And here's a really interesting thing, kind of talking about the intermittent fasting. Mm-hmm. You know how junky my knees and back have been.
Yeah.
I'm in there sitting in this room on the floor, crisscross, right? I can't tell you the last time I was able to sit on a floor with my legs crossed and they're not killing me.
Right.
So that, I noticed that the fasting's helping with things like that, with the pains. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is interesting. But the plant medicine seems to know where I hurt, and I was calling out to GK through this, and I would point things out, and she would, at least in my memory, and that's why I wanted her to be a part of this, because I don't know how much of it was hallucinatory or how much of it was truly her, but I would feel these moments of pain in a specific area, and she would lay hands and
true.
Kind of help push the bad energy out. And the other people that were there helping facilitate as well, I would suddenly feel hands on my head, on my arms, on my legs, and they were all kind of chipping in and helping. So I don't know, GK, let's start off with that. Were you the only one, or were there other members there that were helping? And I mean the fleshies, the people that were in the room.
Yeah, no, it was a beautiful dance. I began, and then I received help from two other women. It truly was. Again, I know this may sound crazy, but it was as if you were being reborn. That's what it was like.
Well, and that's that moment. So, Tim, that's where I was going to take you. That was my first coming through this. Now, I'm digging through this shudder feeling, right? Mm-hmm. And I got to be honest, God damn it, the first thing that starts to make its appearance to me is a snake.
Really?
But there's no fear involved with the snake. It's massive. It's like this movie anaconda-sized snake.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I feel it begin to wrap itself around me, but never once is there this moment of fear. Never once is there this moment. And suddenly, from my legs going up, I just start to feel the convulsions of the snake, like it's squeezing. But as it's doing this, the mask over my eyes is coming off slowly, because my body's, I feel at least, my body is pulsating to the same rhythm of the snake's coils.
That makes sense, Dave, because yes, it was. And you kept involuntarily doing these things with your arms constantly, where they almost weren't even a part of your body.
Right. And that was crazy to me. But this first process, Tim, was a rebirth. I don't know how else to explain it. There was no fear. There was nothing. And it was like in that final squeeze, the mask fell off my eyes and I could see in the room, I could see the people that were there helping me. The physical people that were there, the three women, GK and the other two women that were part of this, I could see them around me and they were all cheering me on and it was great. And it was this, Dave, you're doing great. You're doing great. Boy, you were made for this. Just keep going with the journey. And there's this sense of pride and happiness, but not like a boastful pride. It was just this sense of accomplishment of having gotten into this place. And the snake didn't frighten me at all. And it made me feel as though I was pushed back in to the living. And then, as GK mentioned, I was realizing I was at that moment, I was there in that room. I was present at my birth 52 years ago. And I was witnessing this from, I don't want to call it my death, but from the end of this journey as well. So I was in three places. Incredible. I was in three places at once watching this same experience. And I feel this, and then I'm like, okay. And then there was just this lightness that felt around me. And listen, folks, I know many of you are rolling your eyes. Oh my God, this guy was so high. This is an experience that's so beyond drugs, so beyond it. And knowing that there is fear in my heart for snakes, fear in my heart for death, and just fear in general, being human beings and living our lives, I figured I was going to see this. But what's funny is and I call it a voice, Tim, but it wasn't a voice.
Okay.
It was just this kind of universal knowing that was like, it's okay. Here we go. Are you ready? And I remember speaking out loud going, yep, okay, I'm ready.
Yep, you did.
I get it. Okay, I get it. And then I'd hear the facilitator and the assistants going, yes, okay, good. He gets it. He and I'd even hear somebody go, he's trembling. Should we get him a blanket? And I said, I'm not cold. This is okay. This is cathartic. This is meant to happen right now. Something's working its way out of me. And then truly one of the most memorable moments for me during this, Tim, is I felt this massive weight inside me, this like ticking time bomb. And my head is kind of arching back as I'm laying there on the ground trembling, and my back is kind of arching. And the assistant facilitator, who's also a very, very talented medium, puts her hands on me and she goes, oh, his throat chakra is trying to open. Something's coming through. And I felt my left arm just burst upright, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, oh God, this is going to be big. And they're like, it's okay, let it happen. And I go, I couldn't stop it if I wanted to. And there's this propulsion explosion out of me, Tim. Okay? Not vomit, not pooping myself, not that, just this release of energy. And I remember saying, goodbye, Deb. And the facilitator was still holding onto my hand, and the assistant to the side of me and the assistant at my head kind of laughed. They're like, wow, whoever Deb was, good riddance, right? And then the other facilitator's like, bye, Felicia. It was this massive release, and I was looking for healing. Remember, I wanted to go in forgiveness and healing. Yeah. And I've held this, and we talked about it on our true crime show. I've held a lot of guilt and remorse over the death of my friend Debbie that was murdered.
Right.
And I've held that internally. And this burst came out of me. I literally felt, and it wasn't like I was holding, I can't even convey words to this. It felt more like I had been holding her against her will for so long. with this regret and frustration that I actually let her go. I freed her from me, as though the reason I'm haunted by this is because I've put this construct in place. I've held on to her too long, and I let it go. And I said, they're kind of like, oh, good. Bye, Deb. Bye, Felicia. And I said, no, this is really good. And then erupted, at least in my memory, erupted into the most explosive crying fit. And GK, help me on this. Do you remember that?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay.
And,
so what did that look like physically, if you don't mind me asking? First,
it probably wasn't as huge as you might have thought. It was actually looked. You were held by it, but I always love to say when that kind of outburst happens and the dam breaks, if you will, it's truly a watershed moment. And a lot of people don't realize when you cry tears of anguish or pain or sadness, you're literally releasing cortisol from your system. It's fear. You're literally ridding fear from your body. And what's crazy is tears of joy, no cortisol is released. I mean, our bodies are miraculous. But that's what was happening. You were releasing all that pain, all that anguish, all that fear, and some of it could have even been ancestral. Some of it couldn't, and definitely Deb, but also it doesn't, sometimes we need to integrate things and sometimes we need to disintegrate. And that disintegration was so profound, and it could have been fill in your blank, so many different things that was happening. Because I felt like that could be lifetime or lifetimes of pain.
And it popped. I mean, it exploded out of me. I remember the feeling of it going. And then this cry, Tim, was so powerful, but then it morphed into a laugh for a few seconds. And it was just really strange. And in that moment, I realized, too, that the sliver between joy and happiness is so razor thin.
Yeah.
And that the laughter and sobbing are almost the same thing. And that came into effect later on because I don't always allow myself to cry. I'm an emotional guy. I've broken on the show a few times, but I always suck it back in, hold it in. I don't let it out, but I love to laugh. And later on, the plant found that, and it broke me that way, which was really cool. And I remember I'm conversing with the plant and with the universe through this whole thing out loud and acknowledging what it's doing, and I'm getting what it's doing. So, but I let go of this. I break into the sob, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, that's gone. And then I was like, oh, here we go. And I'm back on the roller coaster ride of learning. And then the next thing that hits me, Tim, is I'm in that room with my mom the moment she dies. Okay? And GK, this was profound to me for many reasons. I've told people on the show, I often believe in death. Most times it happens when nobody's there. I think that they wait for that moment so that we don't have to witness it because it is so hard. And I regret, and I felt guilt over the fact that I regret being there with my mom because I felt like watching her die was torture, and knowing there's nothing I could do, and this woman was my world. And I watched this, and I was there for that last breath. And then I swear, Tim, on everything I've ever believed in that realization that being there for that last breath, it said, this isn't a curse. This was her gift to you. This is your mother's last breath given to you.
That's right.
And it was this cathartic, holy shit. And so it said, remember this. And I held on to that breath. And that kept coming back throughout my entire journey that night. Whenever I would start to feel weak, it would say, use your mother's breath. And I would grab this gust of air, and then I would move on to the next level. And it was so powerful that it was there. Now, through this whole thing, there was this shimmery feeling that mom was there. I never, to my remembrance, I never saw my mom. I know the medium would say, Dave, your mom's here. And GK would say, Dave, your mom is here right now. And all I wanted was, let me see her, let me see her. But it wasn't right. And I was okay. I was accepting of that. And I realized at the end, and I'll just give you this one bit of jump, is that I had all of this shit and all of this gunk in me that it's no wonder I couldn't sense the love for my mom and sense this connectivity anymore, because I've encircled myself with so much anger, frustration, hatred, rage, jealousy, pettiness from life. And then as it's releasing, I'm realizing, and I kept saying it out loud, and I don't believe this is just my imagination. I'd say, oh, this isn't mine. This isn't mine either. I don't need this. And the medium and GK would both say, that's right, let it go. That's not yours. Let it go. And I was realizing I'm holding in everything from everybody I've ever come into contact with. Every connection I've made was still connected, these billions of umbilical cords making me kind of carry everybody else's junk. And it was just breaking these bonds. Not that I'm not connected to everybody anymore, but that I didn't need to be their food source, and I didn't need to feed them back. And it was okay to let that part go. And that was really a kind of a powerful moment of realization for me as well. And with every breath, I felt lighter. With every one of these moments, it felt like a new glass ceiling had shattered, and I was moving up and feeling brighter, feeling more alive through each one of these moments. And each one was like a rebirth. And again, folks, I know this sounds hippy-dippy, and I wish for your life that you feel this hippy-dippy at some point, because it is really a beautiful experience that transcends just drug. This knew me. This let me do what I needed to do. And this 4 hours was more helpful, I think, than 20 years of therapy would have ever been in helping me to release these moments. And the snake was ever present, Tim. The snake was around me, ever present. And I started thinking, oh, maybe it's my totem. The snake is my totem. And then I would feel the embrace of a bear. I would feel this bear around me, holding me. And then I'd be, oh, the bear is my totem. The bear is my strength. This is, and it was almost, like I said, it wasn't like this voice, but it was this knowing. And I literally remember hearing, no, jackass, let go. Just pay attention. And then I'm like, oh, they're showing me the coyote. The coyote is my, no. And it just every time, oh, the hawk, I'm the hawk. Look at this.
But I get what you're saying, though, because It is true when animals come up in your journey, they're there for a reason, very specific. So I would encourage you to look up the metaphysical properties of the snake, either the brown or black bear, or of the coyote, because you could have one or many totems. So it would be interesting.
That's what it was telling me was, you're not one of these represents you. Each one is a part of who you are. Yes. Each one is with you. Each part of this nature and how important nature is. And what is my saying, Tim? I'm an avid indoorsman.
Right. Yeah.
And I've never felt more connected to nature than I did in those instances. And I was, I remember at one point during these kind of rebirthing moments, I would tremble. And Tim, I don't know how to explain it other than the fact I felt like my back was breaking open and wings were coming out.
They were. I mean, it's hard to explain, but
I would flutter. My shoulders would flutter as the wings would come out. It sounds absurd, but it was. I felt this connection to it, and it was surreal, and it was. I could feel this, and I remember even telling you one time, GK, when I was going through some of these massive convulsions. At least what felt massive to me. As I said, I'm birthing the dragon right now.
No, those were big. Yeah, you definitely had, like, everything you're sharing is so astute in my perception of what I saw.
Right. And it was, you're thinking, what does all this mean? But it didn't, it's like the meaning wasn't important. It was the doing in those situations. It was these cathartic moments. And I remember too, when I was going through this, I hit the wave, Tim, of not only purging the stuff, but then I said, I remember the medium grabbed onto my arm, and I reached around and grabbed her back. I like loosened my arm and I reached her and I grabbed her back and pulled her in as I was doing this tremble, and she put her hands on my chest, and I said, there's a lot of darkness in here. There's more darkness than I knew. And she's like, that's okay, Dave, you can let it out. And I remember it felt like my jaw unhinged. And my mouth couldn't open any wider, but it felt like just a swarm of black locusts expelling from me. And it was all of this darkness that I'd felt. And it wasn't just darkness, Dave, rhetoric. It felt right. It was such a cathartic release of this anger and frustration that burst out of me through this entire thing. And then what was really funny to me is, like, I'm going through this massive metaphysical change and the birthing of the dragon. I'm getting all this crap and purging all this crap, and then it's over. And I'm laying there on the floor, and I'm like, well, shit, that's it? I felt like I was just getting started. And then it's like this moment, the whole room just kind of exhaled, and everybody kind of went to do their thing. And the medium and this other woman there started talking, and this other woman had, she was there for her own thing. And they started talking, and this other woman was really instrumental in helping me as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the weird thing. All of a sudden, I'm laying flat on my back, which I can't do. My back kills me when I lay on it for too long.
Right.
Now I'm on the floor convulsing and doing these things for an hour and a half. All of a sudden, Tim, I physically feel like 20 hands underneath me lift me and flip me away from them, and I'm, boom, up against the side of the couch. And I said, oh, you two need to be alone right now. And they both, no, Dave, it's fine. You could be here. I said, no, it's not. And they're trying to pull me back, and I wouldn't go back. And I said, nope. And I put my hand up and I said, it's telling me you two need this moment, and I need to get out of it. So I literally am like rolled up against the couch, eyes wide open, looking at the side of the couch on the floor. And I go, I hear them talking, and my own psyche and empathy is kicking in, and I want to speak to help this woman going through what she's going through. And I hear this voice go, no, let them have this moment. Okay, we're taking you back in. Boom. And I go back in.
Wow.
And it was like, it wanted me out of my own head. It wanted me out of my own way. And it did this thing. And then all of a sudden I feel the release, and I roll back on my back, and it's over again. And I stand up, and everybody's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yep. I said, I need to go purge some toxins. And they all kind of laughed. And I said, I feel like I have to pee really bad. So I went in and I peed, and I'm totally clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Totally clear. I flushed the toilet, and then all of a sudden the walls start to kind of move. And I think, oh, shit, here we go. And I sit down on the side of the toilet, on the side of the bathtub. Now, here's something. And as I'm sitting there, I am hearing the music is still talking to me and walking me through more realizations at this time. And I keep spitting into the toilet. And I'm thinking of, these bad feelings I've had, and I spit in the toilet. And I think about, how stupid all of this has been, and why do I hold grudges, and I spit into the toilet. And I keep talking, and then I spit into the toilet. I'm not throwing up. I'm not doing anything nasty. It's just, I'm spitting. And you brought up the mucus earlier, GK. And I spit. And when I'm done, Tim, hand to God, I look into the toilet, and there is a snake skin in the toilet. My spit looked like the...
Holy shamanic sweet balls. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it looks like I had coughed up the skin of a snake into the toilet.
Huh.
You did.
And then all of a sudden it starts to get real dark, right? And I'm sitting there, and I'm, and here was a funny moment. All of a sudden, this other woman bursts into laughter in the other room, because I'm in this deep, foreboding, overthinking moment, and I hear this laughter, and I break into laughter myself. And it's like the universe was telling me, it's okay. This is absurd. But you have to realize that in these moments when you feel so dark and tense, that's absurd and that you don't need to carry that, and laugh about it. Let it come out. And I told you laughter would be important to me later, Tim, in this, right?
Right.
So I have this kind of weird religious epiphany because hanging on the wall, and I'm well aware of this, there are towels arranged on the wall. Mm-hmm. And they're hanging there, the hand towels, the little washcloths, but it's forming like the Virgin Mary shape.
Okay.
And I'm forced suddenly to stand up and I face this. And I'm well aware, completely conscious of the fact I'm looking at towels, but I'm also aware that I'm in the presence of a being.
Absolutely.
And it drove me to my knees, not in a bad way, but I knew that I was in the presence of the Holy Mother. And I'm not Catholic. I'm barely Lutheran. I have a belief in God, but this has never been part of my world. And I began crossing and I began praying. And it was insane to me, but it was this beautiful moment. And then I stand up and I thank the Spirit, and I take one of the towels and I wrap it around my head. And then all of a sudden,
what was going on?
Right.
No, I felt that, and I just wanted you to be in your experience,
right,
and not talk about it. So I just observed.
And I'm sitting in this bathroom, right, and I feel this darkness coming around me again, Tim, and then the snake starts making its way into my visions and my story, and it says, "You fear what you become. You fear the snake and your fear has gotten bigger because you are the viper. You're quick to injure, your anger, the venom, the hatred that you hold inside, the things that you say, the words that you use are so powerful that you can influence people to goodness, and you're on the path with that with your prayer requests online and being open and the prayers that you will say out loud when somebody asks you for them. You're on the right path, but that this dark side of you is really strong and powerful." And as I've got this, and again, this sounds weird, Tim, as I've got this towel draped around me, I have this sense of being like a cobra, right?
Okay.
And my body just starts swaying back and forth against my will. And I'm like, this is so bizarre. And I remember thinking, dude, you are tripping balls. You are so fucking high right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm like,
I could speak to that too when you're done with the story.
Right. Well, here was the thing, right? So I'm sitting there having this moment, and then all of a sudden, like when a snake would bite, my mouth would open, Tim. And again, it felt like a snake's jaw and disengaging. And then I would strike forward, but it felt like I was pushing something unseen out of me. And I did it numerous times. So I don't want to equate it to vomiting, but I was definitely really getting something out of me.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
And then I kind of, I wake up to it again, and I'm sitting there well aware I'm on a bathtub edge. And it's like this moment of birthing pains, and I'm given this respite. So I lean back into the bathtub itself. I slip into it to feel the porcelain, and I'm just relaxing, feeling the porcelain. And I am thinking about these people on the other side of the door, and I go, I wonder what they're thinking about all of this. And I keep hearing, stop worrying about what other people think. This isn't for you to worry about. Be in this moment. It's the spaces in between. These are the moments in life you miss. Be in this moment. And I'm like, okay, stop worrying about it. And and I actually reach, and my hand can still touch the door. And then I close my eyes, though, and I reach my hand out. My hand keeps passing through the door. I'm not feeling it. And I open my eyes, and I can see the door, and I put my hand on the door. And then I close my eyes and put my hand out, and I'm waving it back and forth, and there's no door. And then I hear, sometimes the door is not a door. You put these things in front of yourself as a barrier. They don't exist. You have to learn to get past these barriers that you're creating. I'm like, oh, amazing revelations. And I'm like, I get it. And I'm having these. And then as I put my hand up, I called out to the medium mentally. I'm like, I feel like I'm having an awakening. Are you there? Are you sensing me? And within 2 seconds, I hear the medium's voice go, Dave, I'm out here. Are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm great. And I put my hand down. And then a few seconds later, knock at the door, and it's the other woman. And she's like, I got to pee. Can I come in there? And I said, yeah. So I get up out of the bathtub, I go in and there's there's a bathroom, then there's this like a makeup room, sitting room, and then back into the main room where everyone was. And I felt like, okay, I got to go back in and join the living. Nope, I pivot around and I'm put down on the ground again. And I'm sitting there, legs crossed, the towel over my head, and then I had a really freaky, weird experience, Tim, right?
Okay.
It said, now that you know that you're the snake and you embrace that you're the snake and you embrace the things that you've done, you wanted forgiveness. This is it. Are you ready? And I'm like, oh, shit. Okay. Yeah. And then I consciously, my eyes flutter open and this is going to be gross, folks. I'm going to be honest with you. Streaming from my nose are these long strands of viscous fluid. Okay? It's these long strands of viscous fluid. And I start thinking again, well, this is disgusting. They're going to see this and be totally disgusted. And I hear the voice, no one's paying attention. This is your journey. Pay attention. Don't worry about everybody else. And then it says, this is the venom. We're purging the venom. This is the bad. You need to get it out. And it was so bizarre, but all I could see were the fangs in front of me, and this was just purging this nasty venom out of me. And as I'm purging it, I finally get the clearance of head, and I wipe my face and nose and relax. Tim, throughout this entire thing, I'm like a puppet on strings. My arms keep going out by themselves and doing things that I can't explain. Okay?
Okay.
And my back is jerking like I have a set of wings trying to break free. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And now, were you witnessing this, GK? I mean, could you see those shrugs?
I was watching. Yeah, even when you were in that room, my awareness was on you, and I would even look from time to time. And yes, you were definitely being guided by your higher self for sure.
And it was so beautiful because it's like it's taken me to the ground. It's taken me through the snake. I've purged this nonsense, and then Tim, both my arms shoot out like wings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my eyes are closed, and I look up and I hear the medium say his third eye is opening. Mm-hmm. His third eye is opening. And I am, for lack of a better term, I am in the hawk. I'm not the hawk, but I'm in the hawk. And I'm seeing through the eyes of this hawk. And again, I start thinking, oh my God, this is my totem. And it's like, oh, again, no, jackass, this is all part of you. Just let it go and enjoy this moment. And I was flying, dude. And that has been one of the biggest things I've said since I was a kid. I always wished I could fly. If there was any power in the world I had, I want to fly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was seeing through the eyes of the hawk, and I would lift my face up, and I could see the sunlight, and I could feel the wind. And I'm in a little closed room, Tim. There was a breeze going across me. I'm in sweatpants or a sweatshirt, jeans, socks, and no air conditioning going on, nothing. And I could feel the breeze. And I'm just elated. I mean, I'm literally flying through this. And then I'm thinking the snake. And what's really weird is as I'm talking about this, my arms were like acting it out. And I'm like, I get it. I'm the snake and I'm the bird in the sky. And my hands kind of come together and create this interlocking feeling. So my arms are straight out, but my fingers are locking together. And I said, I'm the snake of the ground and the bird of the sky. That's how they all work together. No one is greater than the other. Right? Mm-hmm. And that is how we need to treat each other. No one is greater than the other. Each plays its part. Each has its purpose. Mm-hmm. And I was just like laughing. I'm like, I get it. And I go through all this. And after this beautiful flight and more messages and more prayer, and I keep feeling called to prayer, and I'm praying for you, and I'm praying for Shane on our show, and I'm praying for my exes, and I'm begging forgiveness. I'm giving them forgiveness. Every little slight, everything is just gone. And I'm feeling this, and I finally collapse backwards on the floor, and I'm just laying there, and I'm like, okay. And this is the point I keep hearing the music, and I think, just turn off the GD music and let me relax for a few minutes because it's going to take me again. And Tim, both of my arms shoot around me, and I just start hugging myself. And I said, this is sweet, but I'd rather, this was my mom. Where's my mom? And my grip gets even tighter. And I go, oh, I get it. I can't keep looking outside of myself for what I have to be capable of giving myself inside. I have to be able to give myself this love before I'm ever going to receive it again and receive it the way I need to. And it would even snuggle me tighter. My grip would hold me tighter through this. And then it would relax, and I go, oh no, I'm not. I want that feeling back. Don't go. And then my arm would flop back over me. Tim, my arms were working independently of me. Whether it was flying and they would jut out to my sides, or it was wrapping themselves around me, giving me my hugs. It was just these amazing realizations of oneness, of how everything is connected. Everything that you hear in all this hippy-dippy rhetoric isn't so hippy-dippy. It's true, because you're being brought to this realization. This isn't something that I've always believed in. I've known that there's a universal energy, but this really showed you how connected everything is and how amazing this power feels when you let it move through you instead of pushing it. You know, I've often said of my depression, I've learned to stand up and let the storm move past me and be strong. And it kept saying to me, be the lighthouse, not the storm. Be the lighthouse, not the storm. Meaning keep letting the light out and let the storm go past. But in that storm, help others, help yourself, because in those moments is when you have to be the strongest for yourself and for others. And then, Tim, I had this really crazy moment where all of a sudden I'm back in the room with everybody. All right. And I realized I had a friend come with who decided not to do this. He was fearful. Okay. I have this gentle giant that was there, this incredibly tall, strong, powerful man, right? Silent, like a sentinel through everything. I have this medium. I have the facilitator, the teacher, and then I've got this woman that's going through a very hard time in her own life. And this is the weakness, this is the healing, and I realize I'm in this because this is all representative of me. This friend that left was the fear that I had to go in. This facilitator was the teacher to help me through this. The medium was the psychic part of me that I was opening. The strong man that was there was this, how I've always had to be for my friends and family and for myself, trying to be the strong one. And this other part was the vulnerable part of me, this other person. And I saw how they all played together. So there's like, God, everything fits. Everything is as it needs to be. Even in the darkest moments when you feel like you're alone, there's a reason for it. And it lifted this fear from me. And it lifted this fear of death from me, that I can tell you now, standing before you at the age of 52, after carrying the burden and weight for 46 of these years of fear of death, the fear of death is gone. I don't fear it. I don't welcome it. It's not like I'm saying, yeah, let's do this now.
Right.
But the feeling, the oppressive nature of it holding me down is gone. The fear of snakes, gone. And it was eradicated. It was like all of these pieces finally fit back into the puzzle of my life. And I realized that every step of the way, the people I've helped, the people I've hurt, it all came down to and as I'm coming out of this, I'm going through the thought, you wanted to say love, you wanted to say healing, you said forgiveness. And did you see, Dave, that in the forgiveness, you got the healing? Now receive the love.
Love and be loved.
And that was the encapsulation. There were many other little instances throughout it that were beautiful and mine for those moments, but it really did come down to forgiveness and how important it is, and how it eats you like a cancer, and how not just forgiving others, but forgiving yourself for the way that you've treated others and you've held. It doesn't make it okay karmically, but you put it out there, and you're giving it back. And I kept being reminded of that. Give this back. And I kept saying to myself too through this, Tim, oh, Dave, you just don't ever have time I just don't have time to meditate. I don't know how to meditate. Well, now I do. I do know how to silence my mind. I learned that. Well, you don't have time to just purge this. Well, you know what? You do. How about every time you go take a piss, you just project onto that the bad feelings of the day, the things that you felt, the things that you don't want, and then I say thank you every time I flushed. Let it go. Let that be representative of the bullshit you're getting rid of out of your life. And in those moments, you are giving thanks for this new rebirth. And rebirth doesn't have to be something massive like I went through. It can be something little every day, just forgiving, forgetting, and moving on. And I'll tell you, I came out of this. I went and I typed a message to my oldest son that, I love dearly, but there's been tension through the years. And I just wrote to him and I said, I just want you to know how proud of you I am, and that you'll always be my first love.
Oh, that's so beautiful. It makes me cry too.
And I signed it, Dad. And my son. Yeah. He's very stuck in his ways, and he's not a very emotional man. And I went to the bathroom, and I pissed, and I gave, and I said, I forgive. It's been stupid to be hurt. It's been stupid. This isn't mine. This is his. And it's okay. And I let it go. And I came back to the phone. And there was a message that said, thank you. That means a lot, Dad. I love you too.
Yeah. The feeling, it's indescribable. Well, you did a phenomenal job describing, but
and
so experiential.
It is. It's you look back and it's easy to kind of laugh off, the hippie stoners are doing this and they're not seeing, Jerry Garcia's leading them through this, and, Pink Floyd, and this isn't what it's about. Not at all. It's really, I would recommend everybody that can do this to take this journey, because it is something that I feel like I've shed years of crap off of my shoulders. And I walked around the next, 2-3 days, and everybody kept telling me, are you okay, man? You're really quiet. And I realized I don't have to say as much. I don't have to do as much. I can just be in the moment. I don't always have to be on. I don't always have to be it. But I was just soaking in and seeing things almost anew for the first time. And I mentioned one thing I'll go back to real quickly. When I was in the bathroom with the towel over my head and I was purging and then laughing and then purging, I started into this hysterical Joker-like maniacal laughter at one point, Tim.
Yeah.
And then I remember thinking, oh, you marvelous bastard, thinking this to the universe. And I remember even saying it, you figured it out. I can't cry freely like I'm doing right now. I'm doing everything to comport myself and not let go. And I said, but you know that the laughter is there. And then I was reminded of that sliver. And in the maniacal laughter, I wept for a few seconds, and then it turned back into laughter. And it was my body's way of, okay, well, if you're not going to do it this way, we're going to get it out either way. And it let the laughter be my guide, the laughter being healing as it is. And we've always heard that laughter is the best medicine. If you are reserved and can't let out the emotions through crying because it makes you feel weak, then embrace the laughter. Find something that makes you laugh yourself sick and let it purge you. That laughter will be almost as cathartic as the tears. And that was that moment. So that was a big download of information. I'll shut up now, Tim. If you have a question, feel free to ask.
Well, a couple of them. First of all, I'll just mention I got my own message from you, and at first I thought maybe Winnie had hit you in the head with a frying pan. I didn't know what was going on. But I was grateful for it, and I'll keep that message between you and I. Interestingly enough, as you told your story, you kept mentioning that snake, and to me, I had my own interpretation of what that snake was until you started to flesh out the story. down the line. Let me ask GK, because I'm interested in what you think your interpretation of that snake is in the beginning and at the end of what Dave described that snake as being.
Well, in the beginning, and I even shared with Dave that, the snake is so representative of life. And if you really look, and again, off religiosity, I'm a spirit. She's one of many of the eternal mothers, depending on what religion you adhere to. But at the feet, at the Blessed Mother's feet, there is always a snake, if you look at a lot of the Blessed Mother statues. Mm-hmm. And then if you think of the American Medical Association, they use the snake as its logo.
Right.
And then if you really break it down to Sanskrit, to the old ancient yogic practice that's been predated before anything, in Sanskrit it's the Inga and the Pingala, as we spoke about the divine feminine and masculine, and they're side by side, but they intertwine, and I'm doing it with my hands right now, like a snake, and they stop at each chakra, and at each chakra is a wheel of light. And so you have your two snakes balancing the divine feminine and masculine, and a lot of people liken this experience or this ceremony like an elongated prayer. And my version of a prayer is you take your divine feminine, your hand, you take your divine masculine, your hand, you put it together in prayer, and it becomes one. Just like the Inga and Pingala, your divine feminine and masculine intersect. So for me, snake represents life. It is the Kundalini. The Kundalini that's another yogic term, and it's a form of yoga that people talk about their Kundalini awakening. That's when their chakras are all in alignment, if you will, and the snakes intertwine, and they're able to feel the energy from root to crown, crown to root, flow freely. So that's what I was thinking in the beginning. But everything that Dave shared, I resonated with so deeply. And I even had some of my own aha moments. And I loved when he described that each one of those people that were there represented a part of him. And I would say the same for me. And I would say the same that we all created this experience for ourselves. It's so mystic. It's almost as if I said, hey, when we were on the other side, I'd be like, Dave, hey, what you doing, yada, yada date in the year 2020? Mm-hmm. You want to meet up at such and such with the medium and this, and her and him. And it's like, you can't look, even someone was supposed to stay and didn't. And we all talked about it. If that gentleman had stayed, I don't think Dave would have been able to have the experience he needed. It's so divinely perfect, right. Beyond supreme perfection of what souls line up. And I'll have to tell you, so many people, I'm coming, I'm not coming, I'm coming, I'm not coming. It's amazing. I just show up. And be of service because you just don't know. It's all really whoever's there had to be there. It almost feels like it was a sacred contract we took before we came into this realm.
Now you just said something interesting with the sacred contract, right? I as I was rinsing my face in the sink at one point and felt, now that's funny, Tim, because there are a few times of clarity where you feel like you're out of it, mm-hmm. right? Like you're out of the journey.
Right.
And you're just as clear as you are right now. And I took off my ring to wash my hands and wash my face, my wedding ring, and I set it on the counter. And as I got done washing, all of a sudden my body pivots to the ring and I grab the ring in my right hand, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, this means something more than just a piece of metal on your finger. This is a commitment that you're making, not just to your wife, but to God and to the world around you. And you're going to build a new covenant right now. And I said, with this, I take this and I give my life to God, to my wife, and to my friends. And I will go forward and I will be a better person and I will be forgiving to myself and to others. And I'm thankful to God. I'm thankful to the love that I have with my wife and my family. And I forgave myself for mistakes I've made along the way and forgiven those that have upset me along the way. And I said, and this is the new covenant that you have with God. And I put it on my finger and it hasn't left my hand since. Now, here's a weird thing, because I know that I've just turned people off by evoking the name God. Okay. I want to say this. God is what you make it to mean. Because in this moment of seeing the bear and the coyote and the hawk and the snake and the wolf, Tim, mm-hmm. God is all of it. All right. To me, God is the big God that I grew up understanding and knowing. To GK, it could mean universe. To whatever, I saw the religious icons. I saw the religious features. It was, yeah, you and I went and saw this movie together. It's still one of my favorite scenes, and maybe now I know why. When we went and saw Star Trek, right, The Undiscovered Country,
right,
and there's the scene when they're called to this planet Shakari to face God, and his face morphs from one God to another, right? Whether it's God or Buddha or Allah or whoever you believe in. The thing that came to me was, it doesn't matter the face that you give this. What matters is the message behind it, which is love and love one another. And it sounds so hokey and corny, and I wanted to hate it for feeling that way, but it was like, you can't, when you're in that moment and you face the face of God, you realize that whatever you predispose to believe it to be, what it comes down to is, and then I was given that moment of reflection. Like it was like quick shutters, like you were going through a slideshow at 1,000,000 miles an hour of my life. I saw all of the good I've done that I don't give myself credit for. I saw all the bad that I've done that I don't give myself credit for. And then I was reminded that now that you know these things, you be in the moment and you be aware. You be aware of the feelings and how what you do affects other people. And Tim, when we look back, and I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back. I'm not saying this to be, oh, what a hero. But this show that we started together, right, has changed lives, right, has brought people back from the brink of suicidal thoughts, has introduced people to the world that they would not have known about, has introduced lovers, has introduced friends, has introduced husband and wives and husbands and husbands and wives and wives. And, through this shutter of our life, we have impacted and affected many with our prayer requests, our healing requests, our everything that we've given. And that means we're on the right path. Although we deviate from it from time to time with our own humanity and our fallings, it doesn't define who we are. We come back to that path of being good. We have that choice of doing this or not doing this. And doing it feels a hell of a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I am interested in one thing, and I want to ask GK this question because, and then I'm going to ask you this too, Dave, because I have my own theory, and I want to throw it out after you both answer this question. It has to do with when Dave's in the bathroom and he sees the amalgamation of towels that later becomes Mary, Mother Mary. GK, I want to ask you why you feel Mother Mary comes to Dave.
I think for many reasons. I think because, well, first of all, that's the energy I carry, but it doesn't represent just the Mother Mary, although that's when Dave spoke of the prayer that I put with the word forgiveness, it was prayed through her. But I look at her, like Dave said, as an eternal mother. It's beyond religiosity. There's the eternal mother in so many different religions, but it's really about the archetype of the mother and how to be held by the mother. Now, why I think she came through is because that is what we spoke of, that is what we invoked, and the Blessed Mother would appear because of the energy that Dave has in relation to the Blessed Mother and the energy that I did. Now, if Dave was Muslim or if he was or if he was Indian and Lalitha may be his eternal mother, or if he was Egyptian and Isis was his eternal mother, believe it or not, Isis is the eternal mother. We bastardized it and made it terrorism. That's a whole other topic. But that would probably appear. So hallucinating. Look, when you do this work, we call it a hallucination, but he's entering the 88% of our brain that we don't use. He's entering our subconscious that we don't to make quote-unquote sense pragmatically like it would in this realm. But absolutely, with every fiber of my being, the energetic of the Blessed Mother was present in that bathroom, 100%. I can't do a dissertation about it. I could do a TED Talk about it. It's a deep knowing. This is where faith comes in. And this is what my belief system is. I mean, I'm not trying to make anyone right or wrong, but I do believe with Dave 100% that that's what was happening. And I've had my own experiences on the sacrament, very similar. And it's very profound, and it's hard to describe, I guess, is what I would say. How about you, Dave?
Dave, you said yourself you're not Catholic, you're barely Lutheran. You yourself had your experience with the Mother Mary in the bathroom. Why do you feel it was Mother Mary that came to you in that bathroom at that time?
As soon as you asked GK, I started trying to rationalize, and then I just thought, I don't have an answer for you, and I can't. I think I can rationalize and create a really well-spoken answer that might make sense. Okay. But I don't really even want to dismiss it that way. I feel like that, like it said, stop being in your thoughts, just be in your heart. It is what it is. I can't give a reason or a purpose behind it, but it was meant to bring me peace and comfort and help me in my grieving and help me in my, what's the word I'm looking for here? Help me in my healing process. So I don't want to ascribe a thought or a preconceived notion to what it is. I'm just going to accept it that it is what it is. And it happened because it needed to happen in that moment. And that to me is good enough. If I hope that doesn't feel like a cheat, no, but it's, I just feel like we spend so much time. We spend so much time trying to fit things into pigeonholes and make things make sense that I don't think we necessarily have to. Sometimes just accept it for what it is. Even, the skeptics, like Dr. Michael Shermer, has a great point. I don't have to give you a reason of what happened. Yeah, that was weird. That was creepy. Do I think it's a ghost? No. Can I explain it? No. But I can accept it for the fact that was just weird. And I think that's kind of maybe even a better grasp of how we should look at all things in life, that I don't need to have a definitive answer. I just have to appreciate the experience and what it brought me in that moment. It's weird because we sit behind these microphones for hundreds, thousands of hours in a career, and we sit and we ask people who have these experiences, well, why didn't you say this, or why didn't you address that? In the moment that you're having an experience, you don't make the rational thought of going, why didn't I ask this question about this, or why didn't I do this? You're in the middle of having an experience, and you're in the middle of focusing on yourself and doing what you need to do in your journey. But let me ask you this, and this is going to seem like a totally weird question to ask. When Mary appears in front of you, do you think of even throwing the journey aside and asking Mary a few questions, being the person you are? Because you know what? I wasn't in, boy, I got to choose my words properly here because, I don't want it to sound, it's easy to say I wasn't in my mind. I was in my heart at that moment. Right. And it wasn't about, hey, does Bigfoot exist? Although I will tell you, it's funny. As it all came to an end afterwards, my next thought was when next time I see GK and I'm going to take one of these journeys, when she asks, what is my word? It's going to be Bigfoot. Yeah, right. And I just thought, well, isn't that really weird that that's what I want to know? But it was just like, like you, pragmatically, I want to think through, well, why didn't I ask the bigger questions? Why didn't? But that's not what my journey was for. My journey was about healing and forgiving and love. And it took me where I needed to go. And she said at the beginning, the plant knows what you need. The plant medicine knows and will reveal it to you in the way that you need to know it and accept it. And that's what it did. So I wasn't in Darkness Dave mode of, well, Mary, thank you for showing up today, and we appreciate your time. So what's it like to be there and watch your son hang on the cross? That wasn't my journey. My journey was that I was in the presence of something wonderful, something healing, and that it drove me to my knees. And I have bad knees, man. I spent more time crisscross applesauce on the floor and on my knees than I have in 50 years. And I didn't walk away with any pain. I felt, my stomach doesn't hurt like it has for the last 30 years. My solar plexus is always hurt. That as a matter of fact, that when my kids want to lean on me, I always push them off. Yeah. If my wife puts her head there, I shove it off. I don't have that tenderness that I did. And I remember GK at one point, I would point to parts on me because, again, my legs are going on their own. My arms are going on their own. I'm moving and herky jerky. But I would stop and I go right here. And I kind of pointed to my left hip. And I'm like, there's a pain here. It hurts bad. And GK kind of got over me and pushed down on it. And I can't tell you what the words that she was saying because I was in that moment, but something felt like it broke free from me and came out. And then,
oh my God, you never spoke that out loud. I just instinctively went to your hips.
Oh, see, I remember.
That's crazy.
I thought I remember pointing that out, but then I said, and then I pointed to the.
You did some parts, but I remember when I went to your hips.
The solar plexus
really called to your hips.
Yeah, I remember you and the medium putting your hands on my solar plexus and pushing down. I thought, oh shit, don't do that. I don't like being touched there. And I remember having that thought, and then I was like, hey, it's not bothering me. And I was actually feeling like whatever was there bothering me was not there anymore. And then a little bit later, when it went to the throat chakra and let your voice out, let your real voice be heard, and that broke out. It was really unique. So you're just kind of in these moments of healing, and I remember then reaching up to my right shoulder, kind of into my clavicle, and I'm like, it hurts right here. And it's like everybody stopped doing what they were doing, and all three women put their hands on there and were rubbing and pushing, and then it was gone. So it was beautiful because everybody was called to action immediately. There was no, well, I'm not doing that. What is he? Everybody just kind of lent their hands to the experience and helped me out. And even the Sentinel, the big guy, I remember at one time I apologized. I said, I'm sorry. I don't want to interfere with everybody else's journey. And I remember everybody just assuring me, this is fine. And the woman there who was there for healing and dealing with her own thing said, no, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
And the guy reassured me, this is okay. This is all right. And that was like the only words I remember hearing from him the entire time I was there.
It's true.
It's
he
like
spoke a lot more when you left.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
but Tim, could I speak to that place you're asking about, the Mother Mary?
Yeah.
Just to remember to circle back. When you're taking ayahuasca, you're entering your subconscious. You're entering the part of your brain that we don't use in this realm. So it's really hard to try to describe in this realm pragmatically and logically and logistically and rationally what you're experiencing because we're not using our frontal cortex. We're not using the part of the brain that we use in this realm.
Okay.
You feel me?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But what was your feeling when Dave was sharing that he had witnessed and was with the energy of the Blessed Mother?
Honestly, there's a couple of things and a couple of themes that run through this entire story. And what I get, and I wanted to circle back. I'll do one circle back with the snake, and then I'll do it with the Mother Mary, because there's a couple of different things that kind of hit me and resonate here. With the snake to me represent the ties that bind, or the negative ties that bind with Dave, both metaphorically and metaphysically. And to me, they're all negative ties that bind. To me, it just feels like it was not only the negative side of his personality, or the negative things about him that he was trying to shed or needed to in order to attain his higher self or his higher being, but also the psychic or negative bonds that he had, or clamps that he had to put on himself. Mm-hmm. You feel where I'm going with that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. As far as Mother Mary coming to him, he needed that motherly energy to get him through this, because he did have so many negative things keeping him from being able to trying to think of where I want to go with this, because he did have so many negative things weighing him down in order to feel his mother's spirit. Okay. Mm-hmm. He did need that motherly energy to get him through this journey. It started with you, GK. But you can only take him so far in the journey. And at that crucial part in the journey where he needed to shed that negative part of himself in order to attain his higher self, he needed that little push. So he still needed that motherly energy to get him over the hump. And so at that point, the Mother Mary comes in and helps him.
Right. And I resonate so deeply with what Dave shared and what you shared and what I shared. I feel like it's all of it, right? Yeah. And it's all the way we're experiencing Dave's experience. Well, wouldn't you agree, Dave? I feel like we're all saying the same thing, but from our own lens, so to speak.
Right. And, it's funny because as Tim's saying this, automatically it brings to mind the Beatles song, right? Mother Mary comes to me, and everything that I saw was let it be. Everything in that whole journey was just let it be. It's, deal with what's yours. Don't take on what everybody else is giving you. You don't have to. Those aren't your. That's not your journey. That's not your issue. That's not your problem. And you don't need to carry it and take it with you. And it was very, that was great. And I kept sensing my mom was there, but I was never given the gift of seeing her. I would see, have you ever seen, when the sun is bright on water and you could see the reflection of water on a wall and it's kind of got those ripple. I kept seeing those ripple effects on the outer edges of my vision all the time. And I realized that's my mom. And I even came to the conclusion that I had to get through all this before I'll experience my mom. But in the gift of in the gift of the last breath, I remember telling my mom, "It's okay, you can go now." And I really feel like that gift of my mom's final breath, that when I give my final breath, she'll be there, and that's when we'll see each other again. And I shouldn't keep looking for her. I shouldn't keep torturing myself with it, because it'll be there when it needs to be there. Just like all of you were there where you needed to be, when you needed to be, and it all fell into place exactly. And this doesn't mean, Tim, I don't want people to think, oh, so life is predetermined, so this means that we're already living. No, but time is not linear. Time is evolving and revolving, and we can change it, and we can alter it by the actions that we take. And I think that, in those moments when I was brought into three realms of existence, past, present, future, simultaneously, at my birth, from my death, and in the moment of now, it just reminded me that, nothing's written in stone. I can still write my own novel, and that's great. And let's see where this next chapter, I've closed that heavy, clunky book that's sitting behind me now, and I'm starting to scribe a whole new life for myself, and that's great. And I left thinking, and I had a friend pick me up to take me home, and they asked what I thought and would I do it again, and I said, you ask me that right now, and as wonderful a feeling as it is, I would say right now my answer is no, because I don't know what else I need. I just cathartically shed 50 years of trauma and fear of death and fear of snakes all in one 4-hour span, that it's like, I'm not shutting it off and saying I'd never do it again. But it was like, right now, I just want to be in the now and enjoying what I just got from it. And maybe at some point I'll feel I need to go back there again to see what else there is to be revealed. Now that I've cleared away the debris, now that I've pushed past the avalanche, what's the golden palace behind it? And what more can I glean? But at this point, I feel very satisfied. I don't, we spend our lives chasing something that we can't always get our hands on. And I kind of feel like I've ended my journey, but I just feel like I'm at the point I need to be right now. And I don't foresee needing that in the immediate future.
Well, I was going to ask you that actually, and that was going to be one of my last questions that I was going to ask of you, is if you were going to use this tool to grow yourself spiritually, like if you chose to reach out and grow spiritually, and without using the word Bigfoot as your next word, if you were going to sit down and do this again, and you were going to choose to grow yourself spiritually, what word would you choose, or which direction would you go in to try and grow spiritually, rather than, like, let's say, rather than just sit down and go backwards and try and work from yourself and go backwards, but rather go forward? What word would you use?
Right now I can't say because I feel like I feel like an empty vessel. And again, not in a negative way. I thought
you're complete for now.
Right. I thought love was a pretty big word. And then lo and behold, my mouth betrayed me and said forgiveness when I was asked out loud what I wanted. So even what I think might be the word right now, when I get there, I might feel that there's something else calling me. So, obviously we all want truth and wisdom. We all want understanding and love and compassion and empathy. So, right now I'm just going to accept the fact that sometimes a door isn't a door, right? It's just because it's there physically doesn't mean that mentally I'm trapped behind it, and I can go through it at any time. So when that next part of the journey comes, I'm sure I'll be at a point where a new sensation comes to mind. But you got to realize too that in my concept of reality, the biggest things were healing, love, and forgiveness. And those three things, like the Holy Trinity, were bound together, and they all worked together to get me through the experience, which was beautiful, gratifying, and words will defy logic to making sense of it more. I recommend everybody, and you have to find somebody like GK. You have to find somebody that is trustworthy, because GK, I do want you to put out the warning. A lot of people are taking mushrooms or acid or things, and there is a difference between some of that and the guidance and the intention to which you're taking it, right? Some people are just taking mushrooms because they want to get high. They're not taking it with the intention of learning. And they don't have somebody there they're not in a spiritual comfort place, and they're not willingly giving of themselves in that moment to have a full experience. So that's why they have fear, they have anger, they have those things become the overriding deal, and why people have bad trips. Well, I don't feel I would ever have a bad trip with GK, never.
Well, but you have to consider the source, right? So the shaman that I've been working with has been leading groups for 50 years, and the source comes straight from him. You really need to know where the sacrament is coming. A, that's key. B, you really need to vet your guide and your facilitator and know what kind of experience they have, and know if they can deal with a myriad of, I can't even begin to tell you the experiences I've had and what I would have to do, in the moment to make sure safety is paramount. And it's trending right now. You could read about this in Marie Claire, and, 2020 did an expose on it, and it's becoming more and more popular. But, people are buying this off the internet, and it's almost like street drugs. You don't know what's going on or what they're filling it with. So I would say know your guide very well, that they are respected and vetted and have a history. Know where the sacrament is coming from. Make sure that the guy that you're working with knows the dosage, because you wouldn't want someone to overdose. And, that is just not, it's very, very safe. It's not like someone can die, but you can definitely fragment. If you don't know, have a sense of safety inside of yourself and know what it means to be at home inside of yourself, and you don't have that heart center, and that's what a lot of this work is about, and you're thrown out into the astral, which psilocybin would do, or a lot of these hallucinogenics, they take the spirit realm, the realm we've been speaking of, circuitous time, past, present, and future. It could be terrifying. It could be horrific, and we've heard some horror stories. And, even the friend that we were speaking with, remember Dave, he had a friend back in high school that had a really tragic result because of, some kind of drug he took that was laced with something.
Right, street drug.
It's not to be taken lightly, exactly. And, remember Dave, I was saying to you, welcome home, welcome to the beginning of the rest of your life. I liken this work to a lotus flower. It's an ever-ending journey. And we're always going to be having an unfoldment. And whether you are called to continue to journey or not really isn't the point. Your spirit will guide you. Now that you've had this work and that you have this connection to your spirit, you can never go wrong if you listen. So,
can I ask then, GK, for people that are interested and, maybe not near you, how do they find places? It's not like this is advertised.
No,
right?
That's the tricky thing, because it's not illegal, but it's not legal. It's becoming, there is MAPS is a good organization that talks about psychedelics study, and they are starting to do in a controlled setting, which is different than what you were able to experience, but at least it's something that psychotherapists are starting to begin using psilocybin and MDMA, which is the synthetic form of sassafras, in a controlled setting to help with PTSD, depression, anxiety, etc. But I feel more and more this will become mainstream, and I'm confident that, if anyone needs to find me, they're going to find me. I truly believe that. It's like shamanic oral tradition. Like, we had never met each other, right? Who in a million years? I didn't know that I would be meeting you last weekend, and it was just through a series of events that the stars aligned and we were meant to. So I am a true believer that whoever I'm supposed to work with is going to find me, or I will find them. But for everyone else, I would say go to MAPS would be great. That's an organization that is completely devoted to psychedelic research and study.
And I do have to thank you for being there. I know this is greater than you and bigger than you as an individual, but I thank you for being there to facilitate and be a healer through this. Oh, I know that you felt that calling and that you answered that call. A lot of people have callings in life that they don't answer, and I thank you for being there to facilitate that experience for me. And folks, you can take of it what you want. This is no longer a third-hand account coming from a listener or coming from somebody else. You're hearing it from me. This is what I experienced. You can like it, you can hate it, you can disagree with it, but that's your journey. I wish for everyone to find the peace that I found in doing this, and I hope that you are responsible in doing it and find the right people, and that someone like GK comes into your life to walk you through this experience, because I really believe that there is true healing that takes place in this, and that Tim, I believe it's something you and my wife would both benefit from a lot. And it would be something I'd love for both of you to have happen. But I just wish it for all of our audience. And I wish that they find a lifetime of abundance and peace and happiness within themselves. And it does begin with forgiveness, and it's hard. It is hard because we want to hold on to some of these things like a shield of honor. But sometimes you need to lay down the shield in order to feel the sun. And I really feel like for the first time in my life, I was able to lay down that shield, and I'm not defined by those things anymore. I'm not those things. I'm something much better, something much stronger than I ever gave myself credit for. And I hope that this journey is long and varied and continued and just as exciting as it's been for the last 52 years. But that's my wish for the audience. And thank you guys for tuning in today to be a part of the journey with me and hearing my story. And all I ask is, if you have negative thoughts about it, negative things, that's something you keep to yourself, and that I don't request that gift from you. This was something that I wanted to share with you out of positivity and light, and with the full sense of love that, I went in a skeptic. I came out a believer that there is real beauty in us and in the world around us. And I'm aware that there's negativity, and I'm aware that there's bad. That isn't in denied. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. And I know that your story is different than my story. And maybe you've tried this and it hasn't worked for you. And that's again, maybe perhaps part of your journey. So all I ask is that if you have something hateful or angry to say about this, you just keep it to yourself. Write it out, but don't send it to me. Send it to Santa Claus or somebody else who's better at dealing with that. And that's, I guess, all I've got to share. At this point, I do want to make a quick mention, folks. I've got a link on today's show for the Polar Plunge. My son, Cliff, who is a firefighter in the state of Minnesota, every year does something for the Special Olympics called the Polar Plunge, where he and his fellow firefighters will take the plunge into the icy depths of a Minnesota lake to raise awareness for the Special Olympics. Every dollar that is raised goes to help these Special Olympians. Every year, you guys have helped us, and his firehouse is always the top earner because of you, our army of of darkness out there. So please come forward, make a donation. Even if we've hit our meager goal of 3,000 by the time you're hearing this episode, giving $1, $5, $100, whatever you can will go a long way to help these Special Olympians get their training, get their uniforms, get travel expenses paid. It's something that really does help people that deserve it and are working hard for the achievements in their lives. So please consider clicking that link and making a donation. I just challenge every listener to just donate $1. And if every listener out there donated $1, you would make a massive wave in the world and help out people that are in dire need of your help. So thank you very much for listening. GK, thank you again for being a part of my journey and for helping me out through this really life-changing and affirming moment in my life.
Oh, it's such an honor and a privilege to be a steward, truly. I couldn't do what I do without you, so I thank you immensely.
And Tim, again, thank you for bringing me back into the world I love of radio and marrying these two things, radio and the paranormal, being a friend through 32 years of all of it, and onward and upward, my friend.
Well, thank you, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for your growth and your change and taking that chance. It fills my heart. It really does.
Well, I hope everybody gets the same chance in their life to feel these changes and know that it is there. And people that are under that cloud of depression and cloud of anxiety, just understand that isn't who you are, and that there is help out there, whether it's this or other ways. But just reach out for the help. Have a good week, folks. We'll be back again on Tuesday with more True Crime Tuesday. Next week and again with more of the best in paranormal talk radio. Keep checking darknessradio.com for updates and all the cool news that is news to find out what we're going to be doing and the awesome changes we have in store for you. I promise those are coming soon. We're just hammering out all the final details. For Tim Dennis, I'm Dave Schrader. That's GK. Welcome to our world, and thank you for sharing your day with us here on Darkness Radio.